Dr. Evelyn Harris adjusted her visor as she stood at the edge of the excavation site, looking down at the vast, mysterious ruins that lay before her. The sun of the distant planet cast long shadows over the crumbling stone buildings, some of which were buried in thick layers of dirt. It had been weeks since her team had arrived, and they were no closer to uncovering the secrets hidden beneath this barren landscape. The team had been hired by a private space corporation to explore the ruins of a forgotten alien civilization. They had found scattered records in the archives of a nearby space station, but no one had truly understood what they would find. As a leading archaeologist, Evelyn was determined to make this the discovery of a lifetime. "Evelyn, come look at this," shouted Lucas, her second in command. He was crouched beside an ancient stone arch, his flashlight illuminating something in the shadows. Evelyn quickly made her way over to him, brushing dust from her uniform. "What did you find?" she asked, squinting at the object in his hand. "It's a strange artifact," Lucas replied, holding up a small glowing orb. "It was embedded in the wall behind this archway. Looks like it's made of metal, but it's different from anything we've seen before." Evelyn took the orb carefully, turning it in her hands. It was cool to the touch, and the intricate patterns etched into its surface seemed to pulse faintly, as if they were alive. There was something unnerving about it, yet Evelyn couldn't look away. She felt a strange connection to it, as though it was calling to her. "Get the others," she said softly. "We need to take this back to camp. There's something off about it." Back at the camp, the team gathered around the artifact. The air was thick with excitement and curiosity. As Evelyn set the orb down on the table, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just uncovered something important, something far beyond their expectations. "We'll need to run scans and analysis," said Dr. Rajiv, the team's scientist. He tapped at his tablet, his eyes scanning the readings. "But there's something strange about this material. It's not native to this planet. It doesn't match anything in our database." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing. She had seen ancient ruins before, but nothing had ever felt like this. She had the sense that this discovery wasn't just about the past. It was about the future. She couldn't explain why, but in her gut, she knew the orb was the key to something much bigger. As the team continued their work, Evelyn sat back, lost in thought. She had spent her entire career studying forgotten civilizations, but she had never felt so connected to her discoveries. This wasn't just archaeology. It was something else entirely. The night was silent, except for the soft hum of the camp's equipment. Dr. Evelyn Harris sat at her desk, staring at the strange orb. It glowed softly, casting eerie shadows across the room. Her mind was full of questions, and the more she studied the artifact, the more confused she became. She could sense something inside the orb, something ancient, alive, waiting. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for it. She had already run several scans, but none of the data made sense. The orb was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was made of an unknown metal, and its energy readings were off the charts. But no one, not even Dr. Rajiv, could explain what it was or why it was here. Evelyn held the orb in her hands once again, her fingers brushing its smooth surface. Suddenly, without warning, the orb pulsed, sending a jolt through her body. The room around her blurred, and she gasped as her vision swirled into darkness. In the blackness, strange images began to form. She saw alien landscapes, vast cities filled with towering structures, and ships unlike anything she had ever imagined. There was a sense of awe, but also a deep sadness. The cities crumbled, the ships lay abandoned. Evelyn heard voices, whispers in an unknown language. Then one image became clearer, a face, an alien face. It was regal with silver skin that shimmered in the dim light of a dying star. The eyes were glowing, intense, and full of wisdom. It looked at her, not with fear, but with hope, as if it had been waiting for something or someone. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The alien's eyes seemed to focus on her. I am Keleth, it said, the voice clear and ancient. I have been waiting for you. Suddenly, the vision was gone. Evelyn blinked, her hand still gripping the orb, which was now completely still. Her heart raced as she looked around the room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it a dream? A hallucination? Or was it real? She quickly stood up and rushed to the camp's communication center. Rajiv, I need you to check something, she said urgently, her voice sharp. Can you analyze the orb again? There's something more to it. I think it's trying to communicate with me. Rajiv looked at her, confused but trusting. Are you sure? The readings. Just do it, Evelyn interrupted. I think we're dealing with something much bigger than we thought. Back in the lab, as Rajiv ran another scan, Evelyn sat by the orb, her mind still reeling from the vision. She couldn't explain what had just happened, but she knew one thing for certain. Keleth was real, and somehow the ancient alien race had found a way to reach out to her. The mystery of the orb had just begun, and Evelyn was determined to uncover its secrets. Evelyn sat in the dimly lit lab, her fingers still trembling from the strange encounter. The orb, now resting quietly on the table, seemed like an ordinary object again. But she knew it wasn't. She knew that the vision, the voice, had been real. Keleth, the alien she had seen, was waiting for her. For some reason, that name echoed in her mind, a reminder that this was not just an artifact, but a connection to something greater. Dr. Rajiv stood beside her, his eyes glued to the tablet in his hands. The energy signature is still fluctuating, he said, sounding puzzled. It doesn't make sense. This orb is ancient, but the technology inside, it's way beyond anything we have. I don't know how it's still functioning. I felt it, Evelyn said softly, almost to herself. It spoke to me. Rajiv looked at her, his eyes wide. You're saying the orb communicated with you. But how? I don't know, Evelyn whispered. But I felt its presence, and it's not just a machine. There's something alive in it. Rajiv shook his head. We need more data, Evelyn. We can't just. No, Evelyn interrupted, standing up. We can't just keep studying it like it's another relic. This is different. The alien, Keleth, said they were waiting for me. Waiting for us. Rajiv didn't know what to say, so he fell silent, watching Evelyn pace around the room. She felt an overwhelming urge to learn more, to help whatever alien race had placed their trust in her. But how could she, a human, possibly help them? What did they want from her? As if answering her thoughts, the orb suddenly pulsed again, and a soft voice filled the room, this time clearer than before. Evelyn, the voice said, resonating in her mind, I am Keleth. We need your help. Our race is dying, and only you can save us. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the weight of Keleth's words, the desperation behind them. The alien's voice was full of pain, but there was something else too, hope. Hope that Evelyn and humanity could offer a solution. We don't know how to help you, Evelyn whispered, her voice shaky. We don't even know who you are. You will, Keleth replied. I will guide you. Your species possesses the cure for what ails us. We have lost so much, but I believe in you. You must find us. Evelyn's mind raced. Where are you? What happened to your people? The alien's voice grew faint, almost as if it were struggling. We were once a proud and powerful race, but our enemies, our own kind, we destroy ourselves. Now only a few of us remain. We are scattered, hiding, dying. If you don't find us, we will be lost forever. Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes as she stared at the orb. The alien race, so advanced, so powerful once, was now on the brink of extinction. And somehow, humanity held the key to saving them. We'll help you, she promised, her voice steady. We will find you. We'll find your people. And just like that, the connection ended, leaving Evelyn with more questions than answers. but a clear mission: to save a forgotten alien race and perhaps change the course of history forever. The next morning, Evelyn stood on the balcony of the camp, staring out at the distant landscape. The sun was rising, casting a golden light over the vast, barren desert that stretched for miles. The winds kicked up small clouds of dust, and the quiet stillness of the planet made everything feel isolated. But in her mind, there was no silence. The voice of Keleth echoed in her thoughts, urging her to act. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Rajiv stepped into view, holding a tablet in his hands. He didn't look happy. "I've been running more tests, Evelyn," he said, his voice low. "The energy readings are still off. It's almost as if the orb is getting weaker, if we don't figure this out soon." Evelyn turned to him, determination hardening her expression. "We have to figure it out. The alien race is dying, Rajiv. They need us." Rajiv sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I know, but we can't just rush in without a plan. This could be dangerous. We don't know what's waiting for us out there." Evelyn understood his concerns, but she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Every moment they hesitated was one more moment the aliens were growing weaker. "We need to find them," Evelyn said firmly. "We need to get to their last stronghold before it's too late." Rajiv paused, looking at her with a mix of concern and admiration. "And you're sure this is what we're supposed to do? This is our responsibility?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "We're the ones who found the orb. Keleth said we can help. We have to try." After a long pause, Rajiv nodded. "All right, let's do it." The team gathered in the briefing room soon after. Evelyn stood at the head of the table, looking around at the group. Everyone was there: Rajiv, Lucas, and the rest of the team. The air was thick with anticipation, but also fear. No one knew what they were about to face. No one knew what Keleth's people looked like or where they were hiding. "We're going to need all the help we can get," Evelyn said. "We're not just looking for a lost civilization. We're looking for survivors, and we don't know what condition they'll be in." She paused, letting the weight of the situation sink in. "We're going to find the alien race. We're going to save them." Rajiv stepped forward, pointing at the map of the planet on the screen behind her. "We've located the last known coordinates of their stronghold. It's in a remote mountain range, deep in the northern hemisphere. The area's been uninhabitable for centuries. It won't be easy to get there." Lucas raised his hand, his face filled with uncertainty. "How do we even know they're still alive?" Keleth didn't say much. Evelyn met his gaze. "Keleth's people are strong. I believe they're still out there, hiding. They're waiting for us." The team exchanged nervous glances. It was a race against time. If the survivors were still alive, they needed to find them before the last of their strength faded away. Evelyn looked at the group one last time. "Let's get ready. We leave in 2 hours." As the team dispersed to prepare, Evelyn couldn't help but wonder if they were truly ready for what they might encounter. But one thing was certain: humanity had become their last hope, and she wasn't going to let them down. The journey to the northern mountains took longer than expected. The harsh terrain was unforgiving, and the cold winds cut through the team's clothing as they trudged along. Evelyn could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on her with every step. They had no idea what they would find at the end of their trek, whether the survivors were still alive, or if they were walking into a trap. Evelyn glanced at the map once more, tracking their progress. The mountain range loomed ahead, shrouded in a thick mist that seemed to hover over the jagged peaks. It looked like something out of an ancient legend, a place that had been forgotten by time itself. "Almost there," Rajiv called from the front of the group. He wiped his brow, his breath coming in visible clouds in the frigid air. "The stronghold should be just beyond this ridge." They crested the ridge, and for a moment, the team stood in stunned silence. Below them lay a hidden valley, its entrance guarded by massive stone pillars covered in alien symbols. The city within was half buried in snow and ice, but it was unmistakably a civilization of advanced architecture. Towering structures, some still intact, others crumbling, filled the valley. The city was a ghostly reminder of a once thriving world, now abandoned. Evelyn's heart raced as she took in the sight. It was both beautiful and haunting. The city had a strange, eerie quiet to it, as if it had been waiting for them to arrive. "This is it," Evelyn said softly. "This is where they were hiding." The team moved carefully down into the valley, their boots crunching in the deep snow. As they approached the city, they noticed signs of life: faint footprints in the snow, fresh scratches on the stone walls, and soft, low voices in the distance. "Do you hear that?" Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn nodded. "I think we're not alone." They crept forward, the silence of the place almost unbearable. It felt as if the city itself was holding its breath. Then, as they rounded a corner, they saw them, figures cloaked in tattered robes, moving quickly through the shadows. The aliens were tall, slender beings with shimmering silver skin that caught the faint light. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, much like Keleth's. One of the figures turned and locked eyes with Evelyn. And for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. The alien's gaze was filled with fear and hope, and Evelyn felt a rush of emotion flood her heart. These were the survivors. Without warning, the figure ran, disappearing into the shadows of the city. Evelyn took a step forward, but Rajiv grabbed her arm, stopping her. "Wait," he said urgently. "We don't know what we're walking into." But Evelyn's mind was made up. "We've come this far. We have to help them." The team followed her into the depths of the lost city, their path lit only by the faint glow from the alien buildings. The silence around them was deafening. They had found the survivors, but what kind of help would they need, and what dangers awaited them in this forgotten city? Evelyn couldn't answer those questions yet, but one thing was clear: they were in the right place. The alien race had been waiting for humanity, and now it was their turn to save them. Evelyn's heart raced as she followed the mysterious alien figure through the abandoned streets of the city. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft crunch of snow beneath their boots. The city, though ancient, was unlike anything she had seen before. Its towering spires and intricate carvings hinted at a civilization far more advanced than their own, but the decay and neglect were everywhere. The alien figure led them through narrow alleyways, stopping only when they reached a small, hidden courtyard. The walls of the courtyard were covered with strange symbols, some of which glowed faintly in the darkness. It was clear that the city had once been a place of great importance, but now it felt like a forgotten memory. Without a word, the figure turned and disappeared behind a large stone door. Evelyn hesitated for only a moment before following, her team close behind her. As they entered, they found themselves in a large chamber, its walls lined with ancient technology. In the center of the room stood a group of alien beings, their faces tired and worn but filled with quiet hope. The leader of the group, a tall alien with silver skin and glowing eyes, stepped forward. His presence was commanding, but there was a sadness in his gaze. This was Keleth. Evelyn felt a rush of emotion. She had seen Keleth's face in her visions, but seeing him in person, alive, made everything real. This was the alien race Keleth had spoken of, the survivors of a civilization that had once ruled the stars. "I am Keleth," the alien said in a voice that resonated with power, but also with the weight of a long history. "And these are my people. We are all that remains." Evelyn's throat tightened as she tried to find the right words. "We've come to help you," she said. "We'll do whatever we can to save your race." Keleth looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "You are the first to offer help in centuries. The others, they abandoned us. We have been hiding, waiting for someone, to bring us hope." Evelyn took a step forward, feeling the gravity of the situation. "What happened to your people? How did you end up like this?" Keleth's eyes darkened. "We were once great, but pride and greed destroyed us. We fought among ourselves, and then our enemies attacked. War and disease ravaged our kind. Now, only a few of us remain. We are all that is left of a mighty civilization." His words hit Evelyn hard. The aliens had once been powerful and proud, but their internal conflicts had led to their downfall. Now, they were scattered and broken, hiding in the ruins of their once great empire. "We can help you rebuild," Evelyn said softly. "We have the technology. We can find a cure for what ails you." Kelleth shook his head. "It is too late for many of us. But perhaps, with your help, there is a chance for the rest of us to survive." The weight of his words sank in. There was so much to do, so much that needed to be fixed. But Evelyn wasn't ready to give up. She couldn't be. Not when so much was at stake. "We'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice strong. "We'll save your people. You're not alone anymore." Kelleth looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then it begins. We will fight for our future." As Evelyn looked around at the alien survivors, she realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, but with their help, and humanity's ingenuity, there was hope for a future that none of them had thought possible. The days that followed were filled with frantic planning and hard work. Evelyn and her team, along with Kelleth and the surviving aliens, began to study the ancient technology scattered throughout the city. There were vast archives, broken machinery, and forgotten knowledge, but much of it had deteriorated over the centuries. Despite the alien race's advanced past, their current state made everything harder. The technology was damaged, and the survivors were weak from years of hiding and suffering. Evelyn's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it all. The more they learned, the clearer it became that this civilization was beyond saving without help. But Kelleth had insisted they could still recover, if only they could restore some of the lost technology that powered their race's once great cities. "We have to start somewhere," Evelyn said one evening, looking over a map of the city with Rajiv. "If we can fix even a small part of their systems, we might be able to restore their energy. That's the first step." Rajiv nodded, adjusting his glasses. "But we don't know how to use their technology, Evelyn. Even if we fix it, will it work? Can we really fix centuries of decay?" "We have to try," she replied, determination in her voice. "Humanity may not have their knowledge, but we have something just as valuable. Our creativity and our drive to never give up. We're good at solving problems, Rajiv. And this is the biggest problem we've ever faced." The next morning, the team set to work. They scavenged through the ruins of the city, gathering any parts they could find. Kelleth, though weakened, helped guide them, explaining the basics of the technology. Slowly, the humans began to piece together broken systems, reactivating dormant machines with their limited knowledge. As the hours passed, the first signs of progress began to show. A power generator hummed to life, its lights flickering weakly at first, but then steadying. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark hope. The survivors gathered around, watching in awe as the light returned to their world. This is incredible," Kelleth whispered, his voice filled with awe. "I never thought we would see this again." Evelyn smiled, wiping the sweat from her brow. "It's just the beginning. We can do more." But the real test came when they tried to activate the healing devices that Kelleth had mentioned. These machines were once capable of curing diseases, extending lives, and even restoring the strength of their people. The survivors had relied on them in the past, but after years of disrepair, they were nothing but broken remains. Evelyn and her team worked tirelessly, using every bit of knowledge they had to repair the machines. It took days of trial and error, of frustration and failed attempts. But then, one evening, something changed. As Evelyn activated the final machine, a low hum filled the room. The device sparked, and then, with a soft glow, it came to life. The survivors gasped as the machine's healing rays illuminated the room, healing wounds, revitalizing the sick, and bringing a sense of strength back to their tired bodies. Kelleth stepped forward, tears in his eyes. You've done it. You've saved us. You've restored our hope." Evelyn looked at the machine, then back at Kelleth. "We didn't save you," she said softly. "You saved yourselves. You believed in us, and we believed in you. Together, we can rebuild." For the first time in years, the aliens had something they hadn't thought possible: a future. And it was one they would share with humanity. The days following the restoration of the healing machines were filled with new energy and hope. The survivors of the alien race were no longer the weak, frightened beings they once were. The machines had worked wonders, and many of them had regained strength. They were beginning to believe, once again, in the future. But there was still much to do. They had to rebuild their society, restore their culture, and most importantly, find a way to defend themselves. The moment of truth came when Kelleth gathered the humans and the survivors in the central courtyard of the city. The lights of the restored power generators shone brightly above them, a symbol of what had been achieved together. But Kelleth's face was grave, and Evelyn knew that something more was coming. "I have called you here because it is time to face our enemies," Kelleth said, his voice steady but filled with the weight of his words. "We cannot remain hidden forever. There are forces out there who will not let us live in peace. We must be ready." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. She had expected many things: healing, rebuilding, new alliances, but she hadn't anticipated a fight. The alien race had been destroyed once by their enemies, and now they were asking for help to defend themselves again. "How can we help you?" Evelyn asked, her voice serious. "We're not warriors. We're just explorers." Kelleth nodded. "But you are clever. You are adaptable. You have taught us how to use our technology in new ways. We need that same ingenuity to help us fight. If we can't defend ourselves, all we've worked for will be lost." The gravity of the situation hit Evelyn hard. This wasn't just about saving a lost race anymore. It was about survival. The alien race, once mighty, was now vulnerable. And they needed humanity's help to protect what they had rebuilt. "We'll do everything we can," Evelyn said, looking around at her team. "We'll work together to defend you." Rajiv, standing beside her, added, "We may not be soldiers, but we can certainly lend a hand in strategy. We'll figure something out." The alien survivors began to gather around, their faces serious but filled with determination. They may have been hiding for centuries, but they weren't afraid anymore. They had hope. They had a reason to fight. Over the next few days, the humans worked side by side with the aliens, helping them build defenses. Using the technology they had restored, they set up energy shields around the city and developed weapons to defend against any threats. The aliens had the strength and knowledge, but humanity had the creativity and willpower to turn their ideas into action. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, and not everything worked as expected. But Evelyn watched as the alien race, now stronger and more confident, began to take charge. The humans had helped them stand on their feet, but it was their own strength and courage that would carry them forward. Finally, the day came when the enemy forces arrived. The sky was dark with the shadow of ships descending upon them. But this time, the alien race was ready. Together, humans and aliens stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The battle had arrived sooner than expected. The alien ships, sleek and menacing, descended from the sky like a swarm of dark clouds. The city, once abandoned and silent, now hummed with energy and determination. Evelyn stood at the edge of the central courtyard, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched the ships approach. Beside her, Kelleth and the survivors prepared for the fight they had been dreading for centuries. "We're ready," Kelleth said, his voice low but confident. The look in his eyes spoke volumes. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a chance to reclaim their future. Evelyn nodded, though she felt a knot of fear in her stomach. They had rebuilt much, but they had never faced anything like this. The enemy was relentless, and their forces were strong. But they had the element of surprise. They had the technology to fight back, and they had the courage to stand together. In the distance, the first enemy ship opened fire, sending a shockwave through the city. Evelyn felt the blast, even from where she stood. The city's energy shields flickered but held strong, absorbing the attack. The alien technology had been restored, and it worked, just as they had hoped. "Focus on the generators," Raiju shouted over the comms, his voice clear in Evelyn's earpiece. "We need to keep the shields up as long as possible." The humans and aliens worked together, each doing their part. Evelyn and Rajiv ran toward the main control center, their steps quick and urgent. The alien survivors, led by Keleth, manned the weapons systems, targeting the enemy ships as they approached. It was a delicate dance, staying hidden while launching counterattacks, moving quickly to avoid the enemy's larger forces. As the battle raged on, Evelyn couldn't help but marvel at the strength of the alien race. They fought with precision and determination, a far cry from the broken beings they had been just days before. Humanity had given them hope, but it was their own courage that now carried them forward. In the heart of the city, Keleth stood at the center of the battle, leading the charge. He had become more than a leader. He had become a symbol of their rebirth. His people fought not just for survival, but for the chance to rebuild, to reclaim what had been lost. The enemy ships continued to fire, but the city's defenses held. The humans' quick thinking and the alien technology combined to create an unbreakable barrier. One by one, the enemy ships were forced to retreat, unable to break through the shields. As the last enemy ship disappeared into the distance, the city erupted in cheers. The survivors, once hopeless, had won their first battle in centuries. And it was all because of the bond they had forged with humanity. Evelyn stood on the balcony, her heart still racing. The city was safe, for now. But this victory was just the beginning. They had fought to protect their future, and together, they would rebuild. Looking out over the city, Evelyn knew that humanity and the alien race had forged something stronger than just an alliance. They had created a new beginning, a future built on trust, hope, and the determination to never give up. The battle was over, but the journey was only just beginning. The days after the battle were filled with a sense of relief and celebration. The alien city, once shrouded in fear and darkness, now buzzed with life. The survivors, who had thought they would never see another day of peace, were beginning to rebuild. The humans, who had once only been visitors, were now their partners, their friends, and their equals. Evelyn stood in the center of the city, watching the new life that was taking root. The streets were no longer silent. They were filled with the sound of laughter, conversation, and the steady hum of new technology. The alien race was learning to trust again, to work together as they once had. And humanity, in turn, had proven that compassion and determination could change the course of history. Keleth walked up beside her, his eyes looking out over the city. The scars of war were still visible, but they were starting to heal. "We owe so much to you," he said quietly. Evelyn shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You did this. You fought for your future. We just helped you find your strength." Keleth turned to her, his gaze steady. "But it was your people who reminded us of what we could be. When we were lost, you showed us the way. You gave us hope." Evelyn looked around, seeing the city beginning to flourish. She could see the first signs of a new society being born, one that was based on unity, trust, and shared purpose. It wasn't just about saving a dying race anymore. It was about building something stronger together. As they walked through the city, Evelyn saw the changes everywhere. The once damaged buildings were being restored, and the alien survivors were learning to adapt the advanced technology they had once taken for granted. The human team had taught them how to use the machines in new ways, ways that could rebuild not only their city but also their culture. The streets were filled with children, human and alien, playing together, laughing and talking. Evelyn could see the future in their eyes, a future where both species could thrive, side by side. Later that day, a grand ceremony was held in the heart of the city. The humans and the aliens stood together, honoring the victory they had shared and the new beginning they had created. Keleth spoke to the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "We have been saved," he said, "not by our strength alone, but by the compassion of others. Humanity came to our aid when we had lost everything. And now we stand together, not as strangers, but as equals. Together, we will rebuild not just our cities, but our hearts." The crowd cheered, their voices loud and strong, echoing through the streets. It wasn't just a victory of war. It was a victory of hope, of partnership, of compassion. Humanity had shown the aliens that they were not alone, that they didn't have to fight their battles alone. Evelyn felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come to this distant world as an archaeologist, seeking answers about the past. But what she had found was something even more powerful: the ability to change the future. Together, humanity and the alien race had built something that would last for generations, a future based on understanding, trust, and the power of compassion. As the ceremony came to an end, Evelyn stood next to Keleth, looking out over the crowd. The journey had been long, and it had been hard, but it had been worth it. The alien race had found a new beginning, and humanity had found a new ally.